The sound of a busy street fades as the camera zooms in on a small, unassuming figure standing on the sidewalk, her small hands clutching her coat tightly against the cold, the wind tugging at the edges of her frayed hoodie. The city's bustle continues around her, but the world feels distant to Anna, a young black girl, barely 8 years old. Her face is tense, her breath coming in quick, sharp bursts, as her head tilts slightly, a muffled cry escaping her lips. "Dad, my ear hurts," she says, her voice barely above a whisper, but it pierces the stillness of the night. The wind seems to stop, the noise of the city fading as her words reach the ear of the billionaire standing just a few feet away, heading to his car. His sharp suit and cold demeanor make him seem untouchable, but in this moment, he freezes. His eyes snap to her, and his steps slow. Anna's face contorts in discomfort, her hands still clutching her ear, her body stiff with pain. "What happened?" he asks, stepping closer. His voice is filled with the curiosity that only a moment of unexpected vulnerability could provoke. The girl looks up at him, blinking quickly, trying to hold back the tears. "It hurts so much," she whispers again, her words laced with a desperation that tugs at something deep inside him. The billionaire's expression softens, his hand instinctively reaching into his pocket to pull out his phone. "Where's your family?" he asks, his voice steady but filled with concern. Anna's eyes dart around, her lips quivering. "I'm alone," she says, her words barely audible. There's a tremor in her voice, and the billionaire's heart tightens. He steps forward, his instincts as a father kicking in, his sharp gaze scanning the street, looking for anyone who might be looking for this child. But there's no one. Just the harsh city lights and the darkened streets. The wind picks up again, the chill cutting through the moment, but the billionaire doesn't move. His eyes lock onto Anna's, and in that moment, something shifts inside him. He doesn't know why, but he feels compelled to help. "Come with me," he says softly, his voice now a mix of authority and tenderness. Without another word, he reaches down to gently guide Anna by the shoulder, his hand warm against her cold skin. The sound of the city resumes as they walk toward his car, the bustle of the world rushing past them, but in this moment, it's just the two of them, two souls connected by an unexpected bond. The pain in Anna's face is evident, but there's also a glimmer of hope in her eyes. She looks up at him, her voice shaking slightly as she speaks once more. "Thank you." The billionaire doesn't answer at first, his mind racing, but then he simply nods, as if acknowledging something far bigger than the pain in her ear. As they reach the car, he opens the door for her, his hands steady despite the swirl of emotions building inside him. "Let's get you to the hospital," he says, and with that, they both climb into the warmth of the car, the engine roaring to life as the world outside fades into the night. The car came to a halt in front of the hospital, the bright lights of the emergency entrance cutting through the night. The billionaire quickly parked the car and rushed out, his heart pounding with urgency. Anna, still clutching her ear, followed him closely. Her face was pale, and her eyes, though filled with pain, held a flicker of something else, fear. The billionaire could sense her hesitation, but he didn't stop. "We're almost there," he reassured her again, though his own voice felt a little uncertain. Anna didn't reply, her eyes fixed on the hospital's entrance. They rushed through the doors, and the sterile smell of antiseptic hit them immediately. The waiting room was nearly empty, the soft hum of machines filling the air. The billionaire walked up to the front desk, his voice commanding, "Emergency. This young girl needs help immediately." The nurse at the desk looked up, startled by his intensity. She quickly stood and nodded, signaling for them to follow her. "This way, sir." As they walked through the hallway, Anna seemed to grow more tense with every step. The billionaire could feel her unease, and it only deepened his own concern. When they reached a small room, a nurse quickly ushered them inside. "Please have a seat, and we'll check on her right away," she said, as she motioned to the examination table. Anna hesitated before sitting down, her small body trembling slightly. The billionaire, unsure of how to help, simply stood nearby, watching her closely. He felt powerless in that moment, knowing he could offer no real comfort except his presence. A doctor soon entered the room, a middle-aged woman with kind eyes, who immediately took control of the situation. "I'm Dr. Wilson," she said as she approached Anna. "What seems to be the problem?" The billionaire opened his mouth to speak, but Anna interrupted, her voice barely a whisper. "My ear hurts. A lot, doctor." Wilson nodded, gently checking Anna's ear, her face becoming more serious as she examined her. The billionaire watched intently, his chest tight with concern. "It's likely an ear infection, doctor," Wilson said after a few moments, "but we'll need to run a few tests to make sure there's nothing more serious going on." Anna's eyes widened slightly, and the billionaire could see her fear growing. He stepped forward, placing a hand on her shoulder. "You're going to be just fine," he said, his voice calm and soothing. "They'll help you." Anna glanced up at him, her lips trembling. "I'm scared," she whispered. The billionaire's heart tightened as he looked down at her. He didn't know how to ease her fears, but he knew he had to try. "I know it's scary," he said softly. "But you're in good hands now." The doctor stepped back and signaled for the nurse to prepare some equipment. The billionaire watched Anna closely as the nurse began to take her vitals, the room feeling quieter now that the initial rush had passed. Anna still looked uncertain, her small frame tense with apprehension. After a few minutes, the doctor returned with the results of the tests. "It's just a bad ear infection," she said with a reassuring smile. "We'll give her some medication to take care of it, and she should feel much better soon." The billionaire let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. He looked down at Anna, whose expression softened slightly as she processed the news. "See?" he said gently. "You're going to be okay." Anna nodded slowly, her body relaxing for the first time since they had arrived. She looked up at him, a faint smile crossing her face. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice small but sincere. The billionaire smiled back, feeling a warmth in his chest that he hadn't expected. "You're welcome," he replied quietly. As the doctor and nurse began to prepare the medication, the billionaire turned to leave the room. "I'll be right here, okay?" he said to Anna, his voice firm with reassurance. She nodded, her gaze following him as he stepped out. The moment he stepped into the hallway, he let out a deep breath, his mind still reeling from the rush of emotions he'd experienced in such a short time. He had not expected any of this, but somehow, it felt like something was shifting inside him, something important. He had never imagined that helping this little girl would make him feel so alive, so connected to something greater than himself. He had only come here to help her with her ear, but now he realized that what she needed more than anything was someone who truly cared. And for the first time in a long time, he felt like he could be that person. The room was still and quiet, as the doctor finished administering the prescribed medication to Anna. She had settled on the examination table, her face no longer as pale as it had been when they first arrived. The pain in her ear was subsiding, and the tension in her shoulders was easing. The billionaire stood at the corner of the room, his arms crossed, watching her closely. He was still unsure of what he was supposed to do next. He had acted on impulse when he decided to bring Anna to the hospital, and now that she was stable, he felt somewhat lost. The nurse had left, and the doctor was now reviewing Anna's chart at the desk. Anna, however, didn't speak. She simply sat there, her eyes fixed on the floor, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. The billionaire took a step forward, trying to find the right words to say. "How are you feeling?" he asked softly. Anna didn't look up at him. "Better," she said, her voice barely audible. The billionaire paused, not sure how to respond. He had helped her in the way that felt right, but now the silence was awkward, heavy with things left unsaid. After a moment, he spoke again, more gently this time. "You know, you don't have to be alone. You're safe here." Anna finally looked up at him, her eyes searching his face. There was something in her gaze, uncertainty, perhaps, but also a flicker of hope. "Why are you helping me?" she asked quietly. Her question was simple, but it struck him deeply. He had been asking himself the same thing. He wasn't sure why he had rushed to her side, why he felt this overwhelming need to protect her. But he did. And now, he couldn't deny it. "Because you matter," he said slowly, as if the words were forming themselves as he spoke. "You don't deserve to suffer, and I can help." The room was still and quiet, as the doctor finished administering the prescribed medication to Anna. She had settled on the examination table, her face no longer as pale as it had been when they first arrived. The pain in her ear was subsiding, and the tension in her shoulders was easing. The billionaire stood at the corner of the room, his arms crossed, watching her closely. He was still unsure of what he was supposed to do next. Helping Anna felt like the first step towards something meaningful. As the doctor returned to the room, the billionaire straightened up, ready to take the next step. "She'll be fine, doctor," Wilson said, giving him a reassuring smile. "The medication will take effect in the next few hours. I recommend keeping her comfortable, plenty of rest, and checking back with us in a few days if needed." "Thank you," the billionaire replied, his voice steady but full of appreciation. "Of course, Dr. Pe." He had acted on impulse when he decided to bring Anna to the hospital, and now that she was stable, he felt somewhat lost. The nurse had left, and the doctor was now reviewing Anna's chart at the desk. Anna, however, didn't speak. She simply sat there, her eyes fixed on the floor, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. The billionaire took a step forward, trying to find the right words to say. "How are you feeling?" he asked softly. Anna didn't look up at him. Anna's eyes softened, and for a brief moment, the walls she had built around herself seemed to crumble. She didn't say anything more, but the look she gave him was one of quiet gratitude. The billionaire turned, his mind still racing. He had been in countless business meetings, handled high-pressure situations, but this felt different. It was personal. And for the first time in a long time, he realized just how disconnected he had been from the world outside his empire. She didn't say anything, but the gratitude in her expression spoke volumes. They walked out of the hospital room together, Anna walking slightly ahead of him, but never too far. As they made their way out of the hospital, the billionaire felt a sense of purpose that he hadn't felt in years. For the first time in a long while, he wasn't thinking about business deals, profits, or schedules. He was thinking about Anna, about what she had been through, and about what he could do to help her. As the doctor left the room, the billionaire took a deep breath and turned back to Anna. "Are you ready to go home?" he asked. Anna nodded. But there was a hesitation in her movements. She wasn't rushing to leave, and he could see that she wasn't entirely sure about trusting him. The billionaire stepped closer, his voice gentle. "I'll take you home. You don't have to be alone." Anna's eyes softened again, and she gave him a small nod. As they made their way to his car, he noticed the way she hesitated at the curb, as if unsure whether she should step into his world fully or keep a distance. The billionaire slowed his pace, his thoughts focused on her. He had seen so many people in his life, but none quite like Anna. There was a quiet strength about her. Even in her moments of vulnerability, she wasn't used to being cared for, but something in him, something deep inside, told him that he needed to be the one to change that. When they reached the car, he opened the door for her. Anna paused before getting in, her eyes briefly meeting his. For a moment, neither of them said anything. Then, finally, she spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "Thank you for helping me." Her words were simple, but they hit him harder than he expected. "You don't have to thank me," he said softly, his voice steady but filled with sincerity. "I'm just glad I could help." Anna didn't respond, but the way she settled into the seat, the slight softening of her features, told him that his words had made a difference. He closed the door behind her and got into the driver's seat. As he started the car, he felt an unfamiliar weight in his chest, something he couldn't quite explain. They drove through the city, the lights of the buildings and streets casting shadows over the car's interior. The silence between them wasn't uncomfortable, but it was heavy with unspoken thoughts. The city was alive outside, but inside the car, it felt like they were in a bubble, isolated from the world around them. Anna's small voice broke the silence. "Do you have kids?" she asked, her tone quiet, tentative. The question caught him off guard. He glanced at her for a moment before answering. "No," he said, his voice almost distant. "I don't have any children." Anna nodded, her gaze returning to the window. The billionaire could tell she was thinking about something, maybe the question, maybe something deeper. He didn't press her, but his mind started to wander. He realized that he didn't know much about her past, her family, what brought her here tonight. He had only seen her pain, her fear, and her quiet strength. He wanted to know more, but he didn't want to push her. They continued driving, and after a few minutes, Anna spoke again, her voice barely above a whisper. "I don't have a mom," she said. "She's gone." The words struck him like a blow, and for a moment, he didn't know what to say. He could feel the weight of her loss in her simple statement, and it made something inside him ache. "I'm sorry," he said softly, his voice laced with empathy. "That's really tough." Anna didn't respond, but he could see her holding back tears, her small frame tense as she looked out the window. He didn't push her any further, knowing that she needed space. The rest of the drive was quiet, the hum of the car's engine the only sound between them. When they finally reached his mansion, he pulled into the driveway and parked the car. The gates opened automatically, and he drove up the long, winding driveway, the mansion looming ahead, its lights casting a warm glow in the night. He parked the car and turned off the engine, but neither of them moved immediately. Anna was looking down at her hands, and the billionaire could see that she was lost in thought. He opened his door and stepped out, walking around the car to open hers. "Come on," he said gently, offering her a hand. "Let's get you inside and get you comfortable." Anna hesitated for a moment, but then she took his hand and climbed out of the car. As they walked toward the front door, the billionaire couldn't help but notice how small she seemed, how fragile in the grand expanse of the mansion. It was a far cry from the world she had known, and he couldn't help but wonder how much she had been through to get to this point. "You don't have to stay here," he said quietly, as they reached the door. "But if you want, you can. You're safe here." Anna didn't say anything, but the way she looked at him, the way she held his hand, told him she was starting to trust him. It was a small thing, but it meant more than he could put into words. They entered the house, and he led her to the guest room. He told her to make herself comfortable, that there was no rush. As he closed the door behind him, he stood in the hallway for a moment, staring at the closed door. He wasn't sure where this was going, or what it meant for either of them, but he knew one thing for certain: his life had just changed in a way he couldn't explain. Anna had opened something inside of him, something that had been closed off for too long, and somehow, he knew that this was just the beginning. The morning after their arrival at the billionaire's mansion, the house felt unusually quiet. The soft hum of the estate's automatic systems and the faint sound of the wind outside were the only noises that filled the air. Anna had slept through the night in the guest room, her rest interrupted only by a few moments of tossing and turning. The billionaire had stayed awake longer than he had intended, the weight of the previous night's events pressing on his mind. He had never expected to find himself in this situation, and he had never imagined how deeply it would affect him. As the sun rose and the first light crept through the curtains, he stood by the large windows overlooking the vast grounds, deep in thought. He knew he had to figure out what to do next, how to help Anna. His thoughts were interrupted when he heard the soft sound of footsteps approaching from behind. Turning, he saw Anna standing at the edge of the hallway, her eyes wide, her small hands clasped in front of her. She looked lost, unsure of where to go or what to do. For a moment, they simply stared at each other. The billionaire took a deep breath, then walked toward her, his voice gentle but firm. "Good morning, Anna. How are you feeling today?" Anna hesitated before answering, her gaze dropping to the floor. "Better," she said quietly, "but I don't really know what I'm supposed to do now." The billionaire could see the uncertainty in her eyes, the fear that still lingered beneath her calm exterior. He understood. She was in a world that was completely foreign to her, and while the hospital visit had helped with her physical pain, it was the emotional weight that was still left unspoken. "I understand," he said, his voice steady, "but you don't have to have all the answers right now. We'll take things one step at a time." Anna looked up at him then, her eyes searching his face. "Why are you helping me?" she asked, her voice soft but filled with a quiet desperation that tugged at him. The question was simple, but it was one he hadn't quite figured out himself. He hadn't expected to care this much about a girl he barely knew, but something in her had reached him, something that made him feel like he couldn't turn his back on her. "Because you deserve help," he said finally, his voice low. "You deserve to feel safe, to have someone look out for you, and I'm here to do that." For a moment, there was silence between them, the weight of the words hanging in the air. Anna seemed to process what he had said, her small brow furrowed as if she were weighing his sincerity. Finally, she spoke again, her voice just above a whisper. "What happens now? I don't know where to go, or what to do." The billionaire paused, his mind working quickly. He had the resources, the means to give her whatever she needed, but what she truly needed was more than material things. She needed a sense of security, a place where she could start to heal not just physically, but emotionally as well. "We figure that out together," he said with a calm confidence. You don't have to do it alone. Anna's eyes softened a little, the tension in her shoulders easing slightly as she took in his words. She still looked uncertain, but there was something in her expression that told him she was beginning to trust him, just a little. The billionaire took a step back, looking around the large, empty hallway. "Come on," he said gently. "Let's get some breakfast. You're welcome to stay here for as long as you need. You're safe." As they walked down the hall toward the dining area, the billionaire noticed that Anna's steps had become a little lighter, her movements more relaxed. She didn't say anything, but there was a subtle shift in her demeanor, a small sign that she was starting to feel like she wasn't a stranger in his home. The kitchen was large, with marble countertops and stainless steel appliances that gleamed in the morning light. The staff had already prepared breakfast, a simple spread of fresh fruit, scrambled eggs, and toast. The billionaire gestured for Anna to sit at the table, and she hesitated for a moment before sitting down. He pulled out a chair across from her and sat as well, watching her carefully as she took the first bite of her breakfast. For a few moments, there was only the sound of silverware clinking against plates and the quiet hum of the house around them. Anna ate slowly, her eyes occasionally meeting his but never holding his gaze for too long. The billionaire didn't press her, allowing her the space she needed. But inside, he felt the weight of the situation. He had the power to change her circumstances, to offer her a future. But what Anna truly needed was not just a change of scenery, it was to feel like she belonged somewhere. She needed to believe that she wasn't invisible, that she wasn't alone. He couldn't give her all the answers, but he could give her one thing, his support. And for the first time in a long time, he felt a sense of purpose he hadn't realized he'd been missing. The sound of Anna's quiet chewing was the only noise for a moment, but then she looked up at him, her voice breaking the silence. "Thank you for letting me stay," she said, her words soft, but filled with sincerity. The billionaire nodded, giving her a small smile. "You're welcome, Anna. We'll figure this out together." The next few days passed in a quiet rhythm, each morning bringing with it a new sense of normalcy for Anna. She had settled into the mansion, and although she remained quiet and reserved, there was a noticeable change in her demeanor. She was no longer as distant, her small smiles more frequent, and she had begun to open up a little. But even as things seemed to calm down, the billionaire couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. He knew that Anna's situation went far beyond just the pain in her ear or the safety of a temporary home. She had lost so much more, and he couldn't help but feel responsible for helping her find her way. It wasn't long before his instincts were proven right. One afternoon, as he sat in his office, a call came through from his assistant. "Sir, there's someone here to see you." A woman, claiming to be looking for a girl named Anna. His heart skipped a beat. Without saying another word, he stood up, the urgency in his movement betraying the calm demeanor he tried to maintain. He walked quickly to the entrance, his mind racing with questions. Who could this be? What did she want? As he entered the foyer, he saw a woman standing near the door, her posture tense, her face guarded. She was dressed in a worn coat, her hair messy as if she had been traveling for a long time. The woman turned as he approached, her eyes locking onto his. "You must be the billionaire," she said, her voice thick with an accent he couldn't quite place. "I'm looking for my daughter, Anna. She's been gone for a while now." The billionaire's stomach twisted. He didn't know what to say, didn't know how to respond. He glanced at his assistant, who stood silently by the door, clearly uncomfortable with the situation. "Who are you?" he asked, his voice cautious. "I'm her mother," the woman said, her voice now trembling with emotion. "I know she's here. Please, you have to help me find her." The billionaire took a step back, his mind spinning. He had never expected this, never expected Anna's mother to show up at his doorstep. He thought Anna was alone, lost and abandoned, but now this woman claimed to be her mother. "Why did you leave her?" The words escaped his mouth before he could stop them. The woman flinched, her eyes filling with tears. "I didn't want to," she whispered, her voice breaking. "But things got out of control. My life, it's been a mess. I couldn't take care of her anymore. She was better off without me." The billionaire's heart sank. He could see the pain in the woman's eyes, but he could also see the deep scars left by whatever had happened. Anna's mother wasn't the villain she had made herself out to be, but she wasn't the savior either. She was lost, just like Anna. "You can't just show up here and expect everything to be okay," he said, his voice firmer than he intended. Anna is safe here. She's healing. She doesn't need to go back to a life that hurt her. The woman's eyes widened. I don't want to take her away from you, she said quickly, her hands shaking. I want to make things right. I want to fix everything. The billionaire stood still, watching her closely. He could feel the weight of the decision pressing on him, but he couldn't ignore the truth. Anna's life, her future, wasn't something he could decide alone. It wasn't just about him, it was about her. She needs time, he said finally. She needs to know she's safe. If you want to fix things, you need to prove you're worthy of her trust. The woman nodded, tears streaming down her face. I understand, she whispered, her voice barely audible. I'll do whatever it takes. The billionaire watched her for a moment, then turned to his assistant. Make sure she has a place to stay, he said quietly, his mind still racing. But I'll be the one to talk to Anna about this. She needs to decide what happens next. He turned back to the woman. If you truly want to help, give her space. Let her come to you when she's ready. The woman nodded again, a mixture of relief and sadness in her expression. Thank you, she whispered, her voice filled with gratitude. I won't mess this up. I'll be here when she's ready. The billionaire didn't say anything more. He simply turned and walked back into the mansion, his mind swirling with the weight of the decision he now had to make. Anna's mother was in the picture now, and that changed everything. He didn't know what would happen next, but he knew one thing for sure. Anna's journey wasn't over. It had just taken an unexpected turn. The next morning, the mansion was quiet, the sun streaming through the tall windows, casting long shadows across the polished floors. The billionaire sat in his office, his mind still occupied with the events of the previous night. Anna's mother had stayed in a guest room for the night, and he hadn't spoken to Anna about the visit yet. The weight of that conversation hung over him. He wasn't sure how to approach it, how to explain the presence of the woman who claimed to be her mother. The thought of Anna possibly having to face that woman after all she had been through left him with a tight feeling in his chest. He couldn't shake the feeling that whatever was about to happen would change everything. After a while, he stood up, walking to the large window that overlooked the vast grounds. His gaze wandered over the manicured lawns, the quiet, peaceful landscape that felt so far removed from the chaos Anna had come from. He had given her safety, but what did that really mean if she couldn't heal? What did she need more than protection? Was it trust, or was it something deeper, an understanding of who she really was? The sound of footsteps broke his train of thought, and he turned to see Anna walking down the hallway toward him. Her face was calm, but he could tell she was apprehensive, her eyes darting from side to side as if she wasn't sure what to expect. When she reached him, she stopped just outside the door, her hands clasped nervously in front of her. "Can I talk to you?" she asked, her voice quiet but steady. The billionaire stepped forward, his expression softening as he saw the uncertainty in her eyes. "Of course," he said gently, motioning for her to sit down. Anna hesitated for a moment, but then she walked into the room, sitting down on the chair across from his desk. She looked at him, then quickly glanced away, her fingers twisting together nervously. "I know you've been kind to me," she began, her voice barely above a whisper, "but I don't know what to do." The billionaire leaned forward slightly, listening closely. "What do you mean?" he asked, his voice gentle but curious. "My mom," she said, her voice faltering for a moment. "She's here. I saw her. I don't know what to think. I'm scared." Her words were soft, but they hit him hard. He could feel the pain and confusion radiating off of her, the weight of a lifetime of abandonment and loss. He knew this was a turning point for her. It was a choice. She could choose to face her past, or she could choose to move forward. But either way, it was going to be hard. "You don't have to make any decisions right now," he said softly. "You don't have to do anything you're not ready for. I'm here for you, and I'll be here for whatever you decide." Anna looked up at him then, her eyes full of conflicting emotions. There was fear, but also something else, a small spark of hope, perhaps. "But what if I can't forgive her?" she asked, her voice barely audible. "What if I can't ever forget what she did?" The billionaire's heart broke for her. "Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting," he said quietly. "It doesn't mean excusing what happened, but it does mean freeing yourself from the weight of that hurt. You don't have to forgive her right away or ever, if you're not ready. But you can decide how much of that pain you want to carry with you." Anna sat in silence for a long moment, her eyes fixed on the floor, deep in thought. The billionaire watched her, not saying anything, allowing her the time she needed. He had no answers for her, no magic words that could fix everything. But he knew one thing. She had to make her own decision, and all he could do was give her the space to do so. Finally, Anna looked up at him, her expression still uncertain. "What if I want to see her?" she asked. The billionaire nodded, his heart aching for her. "If that's what you want, we can make that happen. But remember, it's your decision. You're in control of this." Anna stood up slowly, her movements hesitant, but purposeful. "I think I need to see her," she said quietly. "But I'm not sure I'm ready to forgive her." The billionaire stood as well, walking around the desk to stand beside her. He placed a gentle hand on her shoulder, offering what little comfort he could. "You don't have to be ready for anything," he said softly. "You just have to take the next step, whatever that is, and you don't have to take it alone." Anna gave him a small nod, her shoulders loosening as if a little of the weight had lifted. She still looked uncertain, but there was something new in her eyes, a sense of resolve, maybe, or at least the beginning of it. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice filled with quiet gratitude. The billionaire watched as she walked toward the door, her steps more confident than they had been when she first entered the room. As she turned the handle, she looked back at him. "I think I'm ready," she said softly, her voice barely above a whisper, "to talk to her." The billionaire nodded, his heart swelling with pride for her. "We'll do it together," he said, his voice firm with conviction. "Whenever you're ready." And as Anna walked out of the room, he knew that this was the beginning of her healing, not just physically, but emotionally. She had a long way to go, but she was no longer alone in the journey. The mansion grew quiet as the sun began its slow descent, casting long shadows across the marble floors. The billionaire walked beside Anna, his steps steady, his mind focused on the moment ahead. She had asked to see her mother, and now that the time had come, he could sense the tremor in her breath, the way her small fingers twitched nervously at her sides. She was brave, far braver than she knew, but even the bravest hearts shook when facing old wounds. As they approached the guest room where her mother had stayed the night, Anna slowed her pace. The billionaire stopped beside her, lowering himself slightly to be at her eye level. "You do not have to do this if you are not ready," he said softly, his voice warm with reassurance. Anna swallowed hard, her eyes fixed on the closed door ahead. "I am ready," she whispered, though her voice trembled. I do not know what she will say." "Whatever she says, you are not facing her alone," he replied. "I am right here." Anna nodded slowly, gathering every piece of courage she had inside her small frame. Then, with a deep but shaky breath, she lifted her hand and knocked gently on the door. There was a soft shuffle inside, followed by the quiet sound of footsteps. The door opened slowly, revealing her mother, her face worn from years of hardship, her eyes still swollen from the tears she had shed the night before. When her gaze landed on Anna, she froze as if the world had stopped moving. "Anna," she breathed, her voice cracking as a wave of emotion washed across her face. Anna stood there, stiff, unsure of what to do. Her heart pounded in her chest, her breath catching as memories she had buried deep seemed to rise to the surface. "Hi," she said quietly, her voice barely audible. Her mother took a trembling step forward, her eyes filled with guilt, hope, regret, and a love that had never truly gone away. "I am so sorry," she whispered, her hands shaking as she reached slightly forward but stopped herself, knowing she had lost the right to touch her daughter without permission. Anna looked down, her fingers curling into her palms. "Why did you leave me?" The question came out soft, but it carried years of pain behind it, pain that even the billionaire could feel. Her mother's breath hitched. She pressed a hand to her chest as if steadying herself. "I never wanted to leave you," she said, her voice breaking. "I was not strong. I did not know how to take care of you. Life kept getting worse, and I kept failing, until I felt like you deserved better than me." Anna's eyes filled with tears, but she blinked them back stubbornly. "You did not even say goodbye." Those words struck her mother harder than any accusation could have. "I know," she whispered, "and I will regret that for the rest of my life. I was scared. I thought if I left quietly, you would not feel as much pain, but I hurt you more. I know that, and I am so sorry, Anna." I am so sorry for everything. The billionaire stood silently at Anna's side, letting her have the space she needed. Anna's breathing grew uneven, her small chest rising and falling quickly as she tried to hold herself together. I needed you, she said, her voice cracking but still strong. I needed you and you were not there. Her mother's tears spilled freely now, her voice shaking as she replied. You are right. I should have been there. I should have fought for you. But I was lost, and I thought you would be better without me. I was wrong. I see that now. And I am here because I want to make things right, if you let me. Anna stood still, her mind spinning. She wanted to be angry. She wanted to forgive. She wanted answers. She wanted peace. But she did not know how to hold all of that at once. The billionaire placed a gentle hand on her shoulder, grounding her. You do not have to decide anything right now, he said softly. You do not have to forgive or forget or choose anything. You just have to breathe. Anna wiped her eyes with the back of her hand, her small body trembling. I do not know what I want, she whispered. Her mother nodded through her tears. That is okay. I just want you to know that I love you. I always loved you. I did not know how to show it. Silence fell, heavy but not as sharp as before. The billionaire looked at Anna, then at her mother. This is the beginning, he said gently. Not the end. Take your time. Anna looked up at him, her eyes full of confusion and hope. She nodded slowly, then looked back at her mother, studying her face as if seeing her for the first time. I need time, she whispered. Her mother nodded, tears falling again. I will wait, she said, for as long as you need. And as Anna stepped back toward the billionaire, taking his hand in hers, he felt the weight of the moment settle deep in his chest. This was not the confrontation of anger he had expected. It was the quiet start of understanding, of healing, of something fragile and new. The night ahead promised more questions, more fears, more choices. But for now, Anna had faced the first step, and she was not alone. The house felt different that evening, as if the walls themselves were holding their breath. The billionaire walked with Anna down the long hallway, his steps slow and steady to match her smaller, hesitant stride. She was quieter than usual, her eyes thoughtful and distant after the emotional encounter with her mother. He could feel the heaviness around her like a soft fog, and he stayed close, knowing she needed the reassurance of someone steady beside her. As they reached the far end of the hallway, his phone buzzed in his pocket. He almost ignored it, but something in his instinct told him to look. When he glanced at the screen, his expression changed in an instant, his eyes sharpening. Anna looked up at him, sensing the shift. What is it? She whispered. The billionaire exhaled slowly, the weight of the notification sinking into him. It is something we should talk about where you can sit down, he said gently. He led her into the living room, a warm space with soft lighting and large windows overlooking the garden. She sat on the edge of the couch, her legs dangling, while he lowered himself into the chair across from her. His voice was calm but serious as he began. Anna, I received something important. It is from the hospital. Her eyes widened slightly, fear flickering across her face. Is something wrong with me? She asked, her voice trembling. No, he said quickly, shaking his head with reassurance. You are okay. But they did want to talk to me about what caused your ear infection. She looked confused. It just hurt, she said softly. I thought it was just something that happened. The billionaire took a slow breath before continuing. The doctors found signs that the infection had been there for a long time. Too long. They said it should have been treated much earlier, and that the pain you felt must have been going on for days, maybe weeks. Anna's eyes dropped to her hands in her lap. Her fingers curled as she whispered, I did not tell anyone because no one would listen. People get tired of hearing me say I hurt. The billionaire felt a deep ache in his chest at her words. He leaned forward slightly, his voice firm yet gentle. I would have listened, and I will always listen when you say something is wrong. She lifted her eyes to him, her expression fragile. Do you promise? He nodded slowly. Yes, Anna. I promise. She swallowed hard, the trust she was slowly building reflected in her gaze. But then her brow furrowed again as she asked, What did the doctors want to tell you? The billionaire hesitated for a moment, choosing his words carefully. They found something else. Something that explains why it hurt so much. There was a small object lodged in your ear canal. Anna stared at him, puzzled. What kind of object? He answered gently. A small piece of plastic, the kind that might come from a broken toy, or maybe from something accidentally pushed in. Her breath caught. But I did not put anything in my ear. I believe you, he said without hesitation. The doctors do too. They said it did not look like something you could have put there yourself. It was too deep, and it must have been painful for a long time. Anna's voice shook. Then how did it get there? The billionaire felt his jaw tighten. He hated even thinking about the possibility forming in his mind, but he could not avoid it. He spoke softly, not wanting to overwhelm her. Sometimes, when children are not taken care of properly, accidents happen, or someone might not realize they hurt a child. But you are safe now. No one will hurt you again. Her eyes grew glossy with unshed tears. Was it my mom? She whispered, her voice breaking. The billionaire shook his head firmly. We do not know. And I do not want you to assume anything. Your mother came here because she wanted to make things right. This is not about blame. Anna wiped her eyes quickly, as if ashamed of her tears. I did not want to be trouble, she murmured. I did not want anyone to be mad at me. He moved from his chair to sit beside her on the couch, leaving a respectful space but close enough so she could feel his presence. Anna, he said softly, you are not trouble. You are a child who deserved care and attention. None of this is your fault. She looked up at him, a mix of sadness and relief trembling in her expression. Will the doctors help me more? He nodded. Yes. They want you to come back for a follow-up appointment. They want to make sure the infection is completely gone and that your ear heals properly. She exhaled slowly, the tension in her shoulders easing just a little. Okay, she said. I can do that. The billionaire gave her a small, reassuring smile. And I will be right there with you. Anna leaned back slightly, breathing deeply as she absorbed everything. She was quiet for a long moment before whispering, Thank you for finding the truth. He looked at her with a tenderness he had not felt in years. The truth always finds a way, Anna, and you deserve every bit of it. Outside, the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a soft glow across the room, and for the first time in her young life, Anna felt the weight in her chest lighten not because the truth was easy, but because she no longer had to face it alone. The next few days felt like a blur. The mansion, once a cold, distant place, now felt like home in a way that Anna had never known. The billionaire had kept his promise, staying close to her as she navigated the emotional roller coaster of facing her past. Despite everything, Anna was beginning to open up. She smiled more, laughed a little, and even began to spend time in the large garden, her small figure darting between the flowers like a bird discovering freedom. But beneath it all, there was still a quiet, unspoken sadness in her eyes. The weight of her past had not disappeared, and although the billionaire had given her a safe place to heal, she was still haunted by the questions she couldn't answer. One evening, as the sun set, painting the sky in soft hues of orange and pink, Anna approached the billionaire in the garden. He had been watching her from the porch, his eyes soft with understanding. She had become like family to him. More than just a child in need of protection, she was a person, a unique soul, struggling with the weight of her own history. Anna stopped just a few feet away from him, her hands nervously pulling at the hem of her sleeve. I've been thinking, she began, her voice quieter than usual. The billionaire turned to her, his gaze steady. What's on your mind? He asked gently, sensing the change in her demeanor. I want to see my mom again, she said, her words carrying a mixture of fear and determination. The billionaire's heart sank, but he nodded slowly. You don't have to do anything you're not ready for, he reminded her. But if you're sure, I'll be with you. Anna looked down at the ground, her eyes searching the grass beneath her feet, as if looking for the right words. I don't know if I can forgive her, she whispered, but I need to see her. I need to know if I can ever trust her again. The billionaire's heart ached for her. He had always known this moment would come, but he had hoped it would be easier for her, that the road to healing would be smoother. It's okay if you can't forgive her right away, he said softly. Trust is something that takes time to rebuild. You don't need to rush. Just take the next step when you're ready. Anna looked up at him then, her eyes searching his face, as if trying to see if he truly understood. "I'm scared," she admitted, her voice trembling slightly. "What if she hurts me again?" The billionaire stepped closer, placing a hand on her shoulder in a gesture of comfort. "Whatever happens, I will be right there. You won't face this alone." He could see the doubt in her eyes, the conflict swirling in her chest. But there was something else to hope, however small. It was a tiny seed, planted deep within her, and it had begun to sprout. "You're stronger than you think, Anna," he said, his voice full of conviction. "You've already faced so much, and now you're taking control of your own healing. That takes incredible strength." Anna's eyes filled with unshed tears, and for a moment, the weight of her journey seemed to catch up with her. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice barely audible. The billionaire smiled softly, his heart swelling with pride for her. "You don't have to thank me," he said, his voice tender. "I'm proud of you. You're doing this on your own terms, and that's what matters." She nodded slowly, the tiniest smile playing on her lips. "I'm ready," she said quietly, her voice full of determination. "I want to see her." The billionaire nodded, his mind already racing ahead, making plans to take her to see her mother, to be there for whatever would come next. He knew that the road ahead was still long, that the journey would be filled with more challenges and moments of doubt. But he also knew that Anna was no longer the scared, lonely girl who had arrived at his doorstep. She had become someone brave, someone who had found the strength to face her past, no matter how painful it was. As they walked together toward the car, Anna's hand found his, and for the first time, she squeezed it gently, as if asking for his strength in return. He didn't say anything, just gave her hand a reassuring squeeze back. They were ready for whatever came next. Together, the drive to Anna's mother's apartment was silent, the car moving steadily through the streets as the tension in the air grew thicker with every passing moment. Anna sat in the passenger seat, her hands clasped tightly in her lap, her eyes fixed on the window. The billionaire stole glances at her, watching as the flickering streetlights played across her face. She looked so small, so fragile, but there was something else in her eyes now, a quiet resolve, a strength that hadn't been there before. He knew this wasn't just about meeting her mother. This was about Anna reclaiming her power, about making a choice that she had been forced to live without for far too long. Anna had insisted on doing this on her own terms, and he had promised to be there for whatever came next. As they neared the building, Anna took a deep breath, her chest rising and falling with the effort. The billionaire parked the car and turned to her. "Are you sure you're ready for this?" he asked, his voice soft but filled with concern. Anna didn't answer immediately. She just stared at the apartment complex in front of them, her fingers gripping the seat. "I don't know," she said quietly, "but I have to try." He reached over and placed a hand gently on her shoulder, offering what little comfort he could. "You don't have to do anything you're not ready for. Just take your time." Anna nodded slowly, then opened the car door. She hesitated for just a moment before stepping out, the billionaire following closely behind. They walked up to the building together, the sound of their footsteps echoing in the quiet night. Anna's heart was pounding, and the billionaire could sense the battle inside her, her need to face the past, but also her fear of what that might mean. They reached the door to the apartment, and Anna paused. She turned to him, her eyes wide with uncertainty. "What if I don't want to go in?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. The billionaire kneeled down to her level, his eyes meeting hers. "You don't have to go in if you're not ready. You have control of this moment. Whatever happens, I'm here." Anna looked at him for a long moment, searching his face as if trying to find the strength she needed. Then, with a deep breath, she nodded. "Okay," she whispered, and turned the doorknob. The door creaked as it opened, revealing a dimly lit apartment. The air was heavy with the smell of stale coffee and old furniture. The billionaire stepped in first, his presence filling the space, and Anna followed, her steps tentative. She looked around, her eyes scanning the room as if she were seeing it for the first time. Her mother was sitting on the couch, her eyes red, her face tired, as if she had been waiting for this moment to come. When Anna stepped inside, her mother's eyes widened, and she stood up quickly, her hands trembling as she took a step forward. "Anna," she said, her voice cracked and soft. "I never thought you'd come back." Anna stood still for a moment, her gaze fixed on her mother. The silence between them stretched on, thick and uncomfortable. The billionaire watched closely, waiting for Anna to decide what she wanted to do. He could feel the weight of the decision pressing down on her, but he knew this was her moment. Anna took a deep breath and stepped forward. "I came to talk," she said, her voice surprisingly steady. "I don't know what I want from you, but I can't keep pretending that everything's fine." Her mother's eyes filled with tears again, and she reached out, but Anna pulled back, her gaze firm. "I need to know why you left me. I need to know why you couldn't take care of me." The words hung in the air like a heavy cloud, and her mother choked back a sob. "I was scared," she said, her voice barely audible. "I wasn't strong enough. I thought you would be better off without me." Anna's face tightened with frustration. "You left me," she said again, her voice quieter now, filled with the years of pain that she had buried so deep. "You left me alone." Her mother took a shaky step forward, her eyes pleading. "I didn't want to. I thought I was doing the right thing. I thought you would be better off." "Better off where?" Anna snapped, her eyes flashing. "Better off being passed from place to place? Better off being told I'm not good enough?" Her voice cracked, and she quickly wiped away the tears that had started to fall. The billionaire stepped closer, his hand gently resting on Anna's back. He didn't say anything, but the presence of his support gave her the strength to keep going. Her mother's face crumpled as she sank back down onto the couch, her sobs racking her body. "I'm sorry," she whispered, her voice breaking. "I'm so sorry, Anna. I know I can never undo what I've done. But please, know that I love you. I always have." Anna looked at her mother for a long time, the weight of her words sinking deep into her heart. She didn't know what to say, or if she could even forgive her. But as she stood there, she realized that it didn't matter. Forgiveness was something that would come in time, when she was ready. For now, all that mattered was that she was here, facing the truth, and no longer hiding from it. She didn't have to carry the pain alone anymore. Anna turned and walked to the door, her steps firm. As she opened it, she looked back at the billionaire, who was standing quietly in the background. "I'm ready to leave now," she said, her voice filled with quiet strength. He nodded, stepping toward her. Together, they walked out of the apartment, and as the door closed behind them, Anna felt a weight lift from her shoulders. She didn't have all the answers, and she wasn't sure what the future held. But she knew one thing for sure: she wasn't alone anymore. Weeks passed, and the mansion began to feel more like home than ever before. The soft hum of everyday life settled in. Anna's room, once empty and cold, now had personal touches, small drawings on the walls, books strewn across the desk, and a soft, stuffed bear sitting by the window. She had settled into this new life, but it wasn't perfect. Healing rarely is. There were still moments of doubt, still memories that crept into her mind when the house grew too quiet, still nights when she would lie awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering if everything would truly be okay. But she was learning how to navigate those moments, with the billionaire at her side. One evening, after dinner, the billionaire found himself in his study, reading through some papers when the sound of soft footsteps echoed in the hall. It was Anna, walking toward him with a hesitant, yet determined look on her face. He looked up and smiled, but the smile faded slightly as he saw the expression on her face. "What's on your mind?" he asked gently, setting down the papers in front of him. Anna stood there for a moment, twisting her fingers nervously. "I've been thinking," she said quietly, "about everything that's happened." The billionaire gestured for her to sit. "You can talk to me about anything," he said, his voice steady, reassuring. "I know," she replied, her voice small. "It's just, sometimes it feels like everything's changing too fast. I don't know if I'm ready for all of it." He studied her for a moment. He could see the struggle in her eyes, the push and pull between wanting to heal and wanting to hold on to the past, even the painful parts. He had seen it before in others, but this felt different. This was Anna, someone who had been through so much, and yet had found a way to keep going. "It's okay to be unsure," he said softly. "Healing takes time, Anna. You don't have to have all the answers right now. But you've already come so far. You've already taken some of the hardest steps." She nodded slowly, but the worry didn't leave her face. "But what if I mess up? What if I go back to the way I was before?" The billionaire stood up, walking over to her and sitting down beside her. "You're not the same person you were before," he said, his voice calm but firm. "You're stronger now, and there's no such thing as perfect healing. There's no right way to move forward. It's all about taking one step at a time." Anna looked at him, searching his face for something. Maybe for reassurance, maybe for permission to feel what she was feeling. "I'm scared," she whispered. "What if I can't get past the things that happened? What if I never feel like I'm truly okay?" The billionaire placed a hand gently on her shoulder. "You don't have to be perfect, Anna. It's okay to not have everything figured out, and it's okay to be scared. What matters is that you're here. You're still fighting." Anna's eyes filled with tears, and she wiped them away quickly, as if embarrassed. I want to be better. I want to be someone who doesn't feel so broken all the time." He gave her a soft smile. "You are already better, and you're not broken, you're healing. And that's the most important part." They sat there in silence for a moment, Anna's head resting on his shoulder, both of them looking out the window at the moonlit sky. The world outside seemed so far away from the quiet peace they shared in that room. Anna shifted slightly, looking up at him with a small, tentative smile. "Thank you," she said quietly, her voice barely above a whisper. "For everything." The billionaire's smile deepened. "You don't need to thank me, Anna. I'm proud of you. I'm proud of how far you've come." She nodded, her smile growing a little more confident. For the first time in a long while, she allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, everything would be okay. "Do you think," she started, then paused. "Do you think I'll ever feel like I belong somewhere?" The question hung in the air, fragile but full of hope. The billionaire looked at her for a long moment, his heart swelling with pride and love for this brave, young girl who had already shown more strength than he could ever imagine. "You belong here, Anna," he said simply. "And you always will." She smiled fully now, her eyes bright with the first real sense of peace she had felt in a long time. And for the first time, she truly believed it. She belonged, she was safe, and she was loved. As they sat together in the quiet, the world outside felt a little less intimidating, a little less unknown. Together, they had begun the slow process of healing, of finding a new way forward, one step at a time. The future was still uncertain, but Anna knew one thing for sure: she was no longer alone. And that made all the difference. This is a heartwarming and emotional Black story about healing, growth, and overcoming pain. Follow the journey of Anna, a young girl who faced incredible challenges, but found strength through the support of a compassionate billionaire who became her guiding light. As Anna begins to reclaim her life, she learns to confront her past and find a sense of belonging, proving that even the most broken hearts can heal. This story sheds light on the power of love, trust, and personal strength, all while navigating the complexities of forgiveness and emotional recovery. The narrative unfolds through pivotal moments where Anna must decide how to heal from the deep scars left by her past. In this powerful Black story, you will witness the courage it takes to face difficult truths and find a path to inner peace. As the story progresses, Anna's emotional journey mirrors many Black stories of resilience and hope. Her transformation is a testament to the power of support, understanding, and the willingness to grow. If you enjoy Black stories that explore the depths of human emotion and the complexities of overcoming adversity, this one will resonate with you deeply. In this journey of healing, Anna finds strength, not only in herself but in the people who truly care for her, making this one of the most inspiring Black stories to watch.